If you've ever wanted a Star Citizen update that's short on the art and big on the features, this is it. I've got all the feature, AI, UI, and general updates of Star Citizen over the last month. From supply and demand trading information to gravity controls to new creatures being developed, this is your Star Citizen monthly dev update. Thank you for coming to my Tomato Talk. Not too much to highlight in the AI content team, but the utility behavior for NPCs continued to progress. This allows AI to open crates, take items out, and put them back in. I could see this being used in many different shop scenarios, mission set pieces, or even as background work in cargo decks and on ships. It's one of many AI behaviors we've seen progress in the past year on in these reports that will make the game feel a little more alive. On the AI features team, Splinter Cell Citizen progress continued. AI received the functionality to react to resolvable disruptions. These are unexpected scenarios that players can set up to slow an NPC down, but the NPC can eventually figure out, like disabling a light on a stealth mission or turning off a vehicle engine in a getaway. They've also finally implemented distractions, which are basically audible triggers to pull an NPC from their normal assignment. This actually required a few different developments we've been reading about this year to be combined. The perception system needed to handle the ability for NPCs to respond to this, while the threat level indicator would need to select the appropriate response. And of course, the behaviors I mentioned earlier needed to be triggered. The team also confirmed to us that enemies will always be under the same weapon constraints as players, requiring them to switch weapons or seek out new ammo depending on the situation. This required AI to be able to view weapons as usables, like med pens rather than just weapons, which can be stripped from weapon racks, boxes, other characters, and more. On the non-combat side, the team continued to work on AI and interacting with cargo in holds, hangars, and trolleys. They also took first step towards prototyping for Buddy AI, which supports gameplay where one or more AI characters would accompany you on your ship, missions, or other places. The AI tech team made several usability improvements to the subsumption tool that drives AI logic. Think of this as the tree of if-then statements that an NPC may be presented with during every cycle of the AI refresh rate in-game. The team also worked on perception even more, adding audio masking to allow background noises to drown out audio stimuli in the foreground, and to determine what is considered a normal sound in a certain area, which would allow the player to hide behind certain activities such as footsteps in the hallways of an active ship or gunshots at a firing range. The team also developed a CPU optimization in AI detection range. Instead of requiring long resource-intensive raycasts to detect large objects at distance, AI can instead determine visibility based on the graphically represented size of the object. Another good optimization going into the AI part of the game. Work enabled NPCs the ability to determine which wall panel needs to be used for which items, like a door panel or a light switch. And work began on allowing NPCs to drive and operate ground vehicles, which will definitely add some life to the upcoming outposts. Moving on to animation, the team finally began discussing the inclusion of creatures in the PU. We saw the art team get started on this a few years back, but the AI navigation and behavioral tech was probably never in a place that could support it anyways. With tech further along now, it seems finally time for animation to start getting involved. The team also worked on the gameplay needed for delivering characters from one location to another, maybe for escort or bounty hunting missions. For the shortest art segment I think I've ever delivered, the character art team took over from the concept art team in getting the Frontier workwear outfits and undersuits of Pyro into the game, and the ship team progressed with the Argo SRV, bringing it up to the final art stage. On the engine side of things, something about physics optimizations, I promise, and optimizations to low-level data access and contention reduction. Whatever that is. Seriously, this segment is always a bit lighter because of my lack of knowledge in actual game development. I'll leave a link down below if you'd like to read it yourself though. On the rendering side of things, a ton of work was done on particles and lighting effects. Additionally, opaque sun shadows for gas clouds, image ghosting, various post-game effects, projectiles, and more were ported over to Gen 12. We got a pretty hefty update on Gen 12 recently, and it's looking like a lot of the progress going into it will make it into 3.18, hopefully to improve the frame rates of some players in the game. Cube maps received some work, optimizations were made, and the atmospheric and volumetric clouds work we talked about last month made further improvements. Lastly, for the engine section, work was put in to support the launch of the upcoming 3.18 update and persistent entity streaming. On to features, the Arena Commander team developed a concept for the dual mode pregame, in a continued effort to make the dogfighting module the primary competitive ranked mode. The concept highlights the ability to select from multiple ships outside of their front-end selected ones, and see what their opponent is flying. A new dogfighting map was playtested and planned for an upcoming update, as well as the initial pass on 5 different locations from around the PU made into their own small maps for racing. The character features team implemented the ability to vault or mantle a ledge mid-jump or fall, as we saw showcased at CitizenCon this year. The ladder gameplay we saw at the time was also implemented, allowing players to look up and down while using a ladder and 360 degrees while stopped. In the future, more functionality like item use and jumping will be added. Wonder if Starfield will have ladders. Sorry, I couldn't help it. The ability to move all items from one inventory to another is now in final testing, praise be. No more constant dragging and dropping, the quality of life is astounding. The gameplay features team worked on the initial cargo refactor coming in Alpha 3.18. They also developed the new commodity kiosks, which will introduce better display of useful information focusing on the buying and selling of commodities, which the cargo refactor itself is confirmed to be focused on the moving around and interacting with solely 1 SCU cargo containers with the tractor beam outside of green zones. This leaves a long way for cargo gameplay to go, but as we saw in last week's Inside Star Citizen, which I covered on my second channel, linked down below, a lot of work went into this initial implementation that will begin to change the way we think of cargo. These gameplay additions include the refillable boxes, which can be purchased for repair material, supporting the salvage gameplay, also coming in 3.18. A side note on the cargo refactor, this is the first time we've gotten good information on what it will include in the monthly report, and it's also 1 month away from the expected release date. In my opinion, this is far too late for them to be detailing this kind of crucial information on such a major feature in the monthly reports, where players are going to understand what is being worked on in the company. The cargo refactor has been in the works for a while, and we have not been told about it at all up until the last monthly report. In my opinion, this is not adequate in explaining these features in the monthly reports that are being worked on, and I hope we can expect to see monthly reports being a little more forthcoming in information in the future. Anyways, also due for 3.18, prison updates were made with new missions and gameplay items at the kiosk. Alongside this, inventories were adjusted across all shops for new commodities. Let's hope that includes supply and demand levels actually making a difference, seeing as that's included in the kiosks. I've been told it already matters, so let's hope this UI actually reflects what's going on in the game. These commodity kiosk screens also received work alongside others like the new Missions Manager and Bounty Hunting Profession UIs. Planning began for freight elevators and subsequent cargo refactor updates scheduled to begin in Q4 of this year, confirming that this refactor is only the beginning. This could include an investigation into using larger containers for delivery missions with the update following 3.18. Hull scraping received its finishing touches and quality of life improvements in a balance pass in anticipation of its 3.18 Tier 1 introduction. The mission features team added final polish to a few different missions coming into the game soon, and made big changes to Jumptown. A second entrance was added and the entire space doubled in size. There are now multiple windows, skylights, and a second drug dispenser too. It seems with the shortest art segment, we're also getting the longest features segment. This is exactly what the doctor ordered. Let's continue. The vehicle features team progressed well on the new MFDs, with weapons, emissions, and ship models all working on in-game displays with the new system. Work also began on the gameplay side of the quantum travel rework we've been reading about on the VFX side for months. Support for the new ground vehicle tech was further developed in anticipation of another internal update in an upcoming sprint. This ground vehicle update will tune up the physics and overall weightiness of vehicles on the ground to make them more fun to drive and more responsive to the normal physics of the game. Master modes progressed with SCM, boost, and quantum speeds being confirmed, and racing ships being tested alongside these new speed settings, along with internal tests going into the disabled state experienced when transitioning between the two modes. This will be important as that balance is going to be crucial for people looking to either fight or get away from attacks. These are both subjects I discussed with Avenger 1 and Black Maze on a recent podcast episode looking at the new flight models from the combat and racing perspectives. I'll leave that link down below along with the rest of my weekly Star Citizen podcast, The Launch Sequence. A lot of the weapon characteristics that were undone by the rebalancing work of Alpha 3.14 has now been redone by the team to rebalance the weapons once again. The resource network progress from last month continued with initial work going into integrating heat components, a big part of my video coming out next week that looks into upcoming flight model changes. I'll also be discussing control surfaces, which in October saw a big update to ship gliding. And finally, the new restricted area system has been implemented, likely with Alpha 3.18. That was a lot of features. The graphics team focused on damage map refinement throughout October, which is heavily involved in salvage gameplay, as well as persistence of debris. Progress was made on porting gas clouds and particles over to Gen 12, and work was done to support some UI work in the new starmap. On the Planet Tech side, the team finished out the first version of Rastar, the location building tool we were introduced to in 2021 and updated on just last week. The narrative team has really seen their updates grow in exciting details this year, with October being no different. The team started working with the features team to update and standardize air traffic control to be easy to adapt to all locations in the future when the new system comes online, likely with or after server meshing. They also continued developing a single investigation mission towards game-ready status to stress test the design and foundational system to see how scalable these missions might be. In addition, the narrative team provided text for upcoming missions and discussed new mission types that will be coming in the next few patches. I'm going to combine the different web and tools teams from around the company. The online services team wrapped up work on the new character repair function that will replace the reset option and updated in-game transaction handling. They also made the friends list alphabetically organized in-game. The small but good victories. The live tools team in Montreal focused on the login flow module of persistent entity streaming. This may have been one of the things that's been pushing back the testing period of 3.18 repeatedly, and hopefully won't be much of a problem going forward. The website of Turbulent began focusing on brand alignment across the website, getting rid of legacy UI elements and bringing in a new look. Thank you. I've been really hoping for this sooner rather than later. And finally, the Community Hub was released last month, a big step forward in creating a central place for players, even though I've been having so much trouble logging in. The UI team, of course, continued on the new star map, allowing it to easily be displayed in multiple locations like a ship, mobiGlas, or potentially other screens in-game. They also worked on the new interaction system and the loadout system. In VFX, work for salvage and repair was completed, and 2 undisclosed and therefore I assume unannounced vehicles continued through the VFX phase, which could be just in time for an IAE reveal in-game. Not confirmed that they're unannounced, and not confirmed that they're coming anytime soon, but we'll see in the next couple weeks. This was a juicy update. I'm not gonna lie, as much of a filthy, peddling, Star Citizen white knight as I may be, I'm surprised at how many features from CitizenCon are showing good signs of progress soon after. Usually I'd expect at least a few months to a year. A lot of the things discussed in this report are much more player-facing than game-facing at this point. What I mean by that is they're features that we feel we can actually use when they get talked about. The reports continue to change as more of the tools seem to be allowing real additions to be made by the content teams. I make these monthly recaps every month so you can keep up with the developments of the game if you'd like. It's fun to see it progress, and you can watch the whole collection in the playlist down below. But if you want more gameplay, feature highlights, and live streams about the game, consider subscribing to the channel for more. And if you want to dive even deeper into the details of how this game works, I make higher quality exclusive videos every month for those who support us and allow us to run this YouTube channel. No matter what you choose to do though, thank you for watching. I hope you learned something new in this video, and I'll catch you in the next one.